Next is our superintendent's report, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Melton.
Ms. Hutchison, thank you so much. It is my privilege tonight to introduce an unexpected, very special guest in the audience. Dr. Donna Elam is beside Director of our Magnet programs, Ms. Sarah Wheeler. Dr. Elam first became introduced to us back in 2013 when we received the first of 2 federal Magnet grants, our Access grant that we received then. And she has led our efforts to work with cultural competency. Not only has she worked with our magnet schools, but she's also become a part of our Lee D5 district professional development model. So Dr. Elam knows us very well, and I will not call her a consultant. I will instead call her a friend and a partner. Dr. Elam, welcome. We are glad to have you here from Florida tonight with us. This is going to be an exciting week. Dr. Harris and his staff are preparing to have our adult education graduation Thursday evening of this week at 7 o'clock. We'd like to remind the board of the invitation for you all to join us at Irmo High School, and of course would like to invite the community. Then we're also preparing for summer school graduation that Dr. Harris is also involved with orchestrating for us. That will be later in July the 18th at 5 o'clock at Dutch Fork High School. So we hope that people will mark those 2 events on their calendars and come out to be in celebration of our adult education graduates and also our summer school graduates who will be graduating on July the 18th. Tonight we have 2 different reports for the board and for the community to hear. The first, Dr. Harris is actually going to lead for us an update regarding our enrollment lottery. Dr. Harris.
Thank you so much, and good evening to you all again. We would like to, thank you. We'd like to go ahead and make reference to the presentation that we have, an enrollment lottery. This is an update, and I will go ahead and share with you that several of the initial slides that I'll share with you and obviously share with the general public you have seen heretofore, but I think it's important that we reiterate those and serve as a reminder as we go through this presentation. Here we go again. On. All right, you may have to drive for me. Okay. We always like to begin with our priorities, superintendent priorities that we have made mention of throughout the course of the year 2018-19. I've highlighted priorities 3 and 4, which I think are pertinent to tonight's discussion and are pertinent to this update, hence the enrollment freeze idea altogether. Again, customer service internally and externally, as well as communication, the most like customer service. We'll note, secondly, that, again, the pages that, next slide, thank you. Again, you've seen this page before. This is a page that gives us an idea as to phase 1 at Lake Murray Elementary School, the number of students that were reassigned as a result of the phase 1 enrollment freeze that began January 22nd, 2018. This next slide is a review of phase 2, which occurred at Chapin Elementary School. That too began on January 22nd. However, it was January 22nd, 2019. That was the number of students 17 as of January 22nd through May 15th, which was a board night for us. You would also see in the next slide here the enrollment freeze. That is a combined total of students that were reassigned or redirected as a result of phases 1 and 2 of the enrollment freeze. Again, that was from phase 1 and 2 up until the current time at that particular board meeting, May 15th, 2019, a total of 160 students who were reassigned. As a result of that, what we brought forward to you, I think there's one more thing, there we go. As a result of that, one of the things that we brought to you as a recommendation is a random lottery that we would make available to those families who were impacted by phase 1 and phase 2. This lottery would follow suit with and be consistent with the lottery that we consistently have and have had over the past 6 years regarding our school of choice and our magnet schools that we have here in School District 5, as led by our own Sarah Wheeler, who's here in the audience. Again, it utilizes a software package that randomly selects students for school assignments. We talked about who was eligible for this particular lottery. Again, I would like to reiterate that it was for those students and families who are reassigned on Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the enrollment freeze. Those two freezes, Phase 1 and 2, did include Lake Murray Elementary School and Chapin Elementary School, and it did not, this lottery did not include or does not apply to those students who were new as 2019 to 2020 enrollees. It did not apply to any new students. We also talked about when the lottery would occur, and that this is the application window that you have in front of you here. It began on June 3rd, Monday, June 3rd at 8 a.m., and it concluded on just this past Thursday, June 13th, at 5 o'clock p.m. So I wanted to serve as a reminder of that. As a result of our outcomes in terms of the enrollment for this particular lottery, and the update, we have a total to date, now that the lottery has closed and has concluded, of 27 students or families who have opted to apply for and have subsequently been initially approved for enrollment to their zone school, be it either Chapin Elementary or Lake Murray Elementary School. Again, keeping in mind these are families that were impacted as a result of Phase 1 and Phase 2 that we implemented in both those schools. 27 students total have actually applied and have been granted initial approval. And I want to come back to what I mean by initial approval. Again, this chart simply gives you a depiction of what it looks like per school. A total of 4 students so far during that period have applied for Chapin Elementary to return to that zone school, and 23 students applied for Lake Murray Elementary School. With the number of 27 students that have been applied, all of these students, again, have been gained initial approval to return to their zone school, either Chapin or Lake Murray. And what we are waiting on now, when I say initial, is that this coming Thursday, a couple of days from today, is the closing date or closing day for parents to accept the approval that they've been granted. So that's why I said there's an initial approval that has been given to these families. Families, again, consistent with what we've done in all of our other enrollment or lottery processes, is that families do have to opt to choose and say, yes, we will accept the approval to return or go to Chapin Elementary or Lake Murray in this particular case. All other families outside of the 27 have opted to remain in the school in which they have been reassigned. We wanted to give some idea of, in terms of evidence. I titled this particular slide, Evidence of Superintendent's Priorities in Action. And I thought that was apropos in the sense that we wanted to be certain that we can convey to you as a board and convey to our public that we have been very deliberate, been very intentional, and making certain that we are communicative with all of our families who were impacted. Again, we're looking at that 160 or so students from Phases 1 and Phase 2. So we felt like priority number 3 best epitomizes or best describes our attempts to demonstrate our superintendent priorities in action. That's the evidence. The evidence is found on the next page, or the next slide rather, and I'll walk through that just a moment. What we did, and I'll say we because I want to include myself in terms of working with our schools, and we certainly give Principal Reese and sitting in for Principal Hutchinson is Ms. LaForce, assistant principal there at Chapin Elementary School, as well as their staff and their registrars in particular, and the front desk and so forth. A lot of appreciation for assisting us with all of these efforts to demonstrate superintendent priorities in action. 100% of the families that were eligible received personal letters, and that came directly to them. Direct email went to all of those families as well. All of the families received a reminder emails about the process and the application window that was open. And they too also received direct phone calls, again as a reminder that the window was open and that they have an opportunity, should they choose, to participate in this lottery process. Now, 44%, where you see that, 44% of the total persons that were eligible, students rather, chose to remain at their reassigned school. So be it Valentine, or in this, if they were in phase one, it would have been Chapin Elementary School. 44% of the total persons eligible remained or chose to remain at their reassigned school. Again, of that total, 23% of those, when we made attempts for phone calls, we ultimately ended up leaving voicemails, again, reiterating the fact that the process is in place, the application window's open, and here are the deadlines for that particular process. 20%, as based on the 27 number that we shared with you, 27% of the 20% of the total, rather, actually completed the application and identified that they wanted to go to or their home school of either Chapin L or Lake Murray Elementary School. And then we had 12% that were simply undecided. They were undecided as to what they wanted to do or how they wanted to proceed, and ultimately chose not to take us up on the option to participate in the enrollment lottery option for those two schools. But I'd like to say this as I try to conclude this, is that we really didn't want to stop there in terms of our efforts to be as customer-friendly, family-friendly, community-friendly as we possibly can be. That item line at the bottom, wanted to read that we are looking at and have had conversations with our superintendent as well as our principals and other pertinent staff, magnet office to assist us, and communications office and others, that we wanted to implement a second wave, if you will, a second wave of lottery to capture all of the students and families who were not impacted by phase one or phase two enrollment freeze. So what am I saying there? Those students who, again, this lottery that we just completed or just closed was specific to those families impacted by phase one and phase two. All other families and students outside of that, let's say that there was a family or families who chose to go to Green Charter for the past couple of years. They were homeschooled for the past few years. They moved in after the deadline of January 22nd, 2018 or January 22nd, 2019. Maybe there are scenarios where there are concerns about siblings. There are 3 or 4 children in the household, and parents are undecided, perhaps, as to whether or not they would even apply for concern or out of concern of getting all of their children into one school. Those different scenarios we heard about and we know about. Based on available space that remains, again, we continue to look at that. We wanted to offer a second lottery for those, what I have considered extraneous families or extraneous students who did not qualify under phase one or phase two. We have yet to determine the specific time frame for that, but we are working very fast and furious to get that in place so that we can communicate and repeat all over again our efforts to make certain that our community is fully aware of the opportunity for a second wave based on available seating for Chapin L or Lake Murray Elementary School. That would conclude, I think that's my last, yes, that would conclude my brief presentation regarding an update on enrollment freeze.
Right, you have a question?
Is this work? Yeah. Can you go back to that slide with the percentages?
Can we go back to, I think my battery's dead on that one, so to my driver, can we go back to the last slide?
Yeah.
I guess my question is, if we did a lottery and we selected some of the people that were displaced first time, and 44% of the people who were selected chose not to go back, and some of them were undecided, and some of them were accepted. It looks like you've only got, what, 20% that have accepted so far?
That actually applied.
But why wouldn't we take, why are we going away from that? I know, I was trying to get back where people, why wouldn't we go back to the people who are left, that are still displaced, that didn't get picked first time, and go back through that population of people and try to fill those seats, rather than stepping over and going to the people who have not been displaced?
And I'm assuming you're referring to those families or others who are part of that phase one and phase two? Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I mean, if it was a lottery, you didn't pick 100% of them.
I didn't pick any of them.
No, but I'm saying, let's just say, how many seats did you have open total?
Well, what we did was we simply made it available so that, again, it's all based on our enrollment. We're looking at that, and it's also looking at making certain that I don't have that in. First of all, I don't have that
Well,
number.
let me just make up a number for you, because it would just
Okay.
show you what I'm talking about. If you displaced 130 people in 2 phases, I forget the exact numbers, and
It
you
was
selected
160.
50
160,
for
right.
vacant seat, or 30 for vacant seats, then there's still another 100 that never got selected that were displaced. Why wouldn't you go back and fill them, give them the next bite at the apple until you've given everybody in that population or subpopulation who actually were displaced the opportunity to say yes, no, before you go to people who have not been displaced yet?
Well, what I would say to that is I think that's a part of the process, and being, again, consistent with the lottery process that we would do at any other time, is that there are windows of opportunity that we would communicate, hence the reason why we did a number of these things, to continue to communicate with families, say this is an available option should you choose. Phone calls, reminders, and that sort of thing, emails to say this is an option, as well as an opportunity to either accept or decline. What I hear you saying is that go back a second time to those same families and offer it again.
Let's suppose people, and sometimes people might be...
Mr. White, do you mind if I ask Dr. Melton to clarify?
Okay.
I think that there's some sort of disconnect going on.
So to answer the question for Dr. Harris, of those families, and using the slide since it's still up for everyone to see, 44% decided not to even participate in the process. But those that did participate are all receiving acceptance emails, so we're waiting to see if they will confirm their acceptance. So once, and I'll use Ms. Gardner's for example, so if Ms. Gardner has a 3rd grader, and she doesn't for the community to know, if she had a rising 3rd grader at Lake Murray Elementary, she may have gone through the process. So now she's gotten her acceptance email in her inbox, and she may say, you know what, I've decided I'm happy where I am, so I'm going to decline this opportunity for my child to go. That then creates a whole new opportunity for us to offer it to another student.
So what you're saying is 100% of the displaced people had a chance to enter the lottery, and you were able to offer 100% of the people who actually accepted the lottery, you were able to offer 100% of them seats.
When we went into this process, we could not guarantee that 100% would have the opportunity to get back in. But because of the participation rate that you see,
Was so low?
it was so low,
They
lower
did
than
have
we
a-
anticipated. We could then guarantee them acceptance, that they've gotten a seat to get in, should they choose to accept it.
So basically 100% of the displaced families either had the opportunity to participate or declined, and the ones that did participate and did not decline actually had the opportunity to accept
Yes,
the
sir.
seat. So there's nobody left behind when you go to the next wave of people or population of people who weren't displaced. Is that
That's
correct?
So our plan is to go towards those that were not involved with the process, that chose not to participate, that still have been affected by the freeze. So the examples that Dr. Harris offered, that maybe they've been homeschooled, maybe they chose a different way to educate their child, that they can now participate in this process, but they were not enrolled at the time. But because they've enrolled for the coming year, they can now participate with the lottery process.
So would it be people just that were not enrolled at the time, or people that like moved in that would otherwise get, directed to?
It could be all of the above.
It could be all of those. So it's wide open
Right.
after you've taken care of the displaced group of people completely by opportunities that were either declined or accepted, and now you're on to everybody else. Is that correct?
Yes,
That
sir.
is correct, and that's
Yes,
exactly
sir.
what that 100% that we have in those first columns identifies or suggests to us, that 100% of those persons who were reassigned or displaced, if I use your term, have been communicated with and have had the opportunity to participate. That's exactly what that is.
And if I might add, that I think it's really impressive that Dr. Harris and his staff contacted by personal letter, direct email, reminder email, and phone calls 100% of the 160. That's right?
That is correct.
So that was 4 opportunities to let people know that they had an opportunity to take part in the lottery. So I think it's also nice to see that 44% chose to, of those who responded chose
Right.
to stay. I think that's a good thing. But just to clarify how that is, and I think that's a really wonderful attempt. I know that took a lot of time to do, but to reach out, to make 4 contacts to 160 families. And, you know, it could be, I think someone, Dr. Melton might have said, if a number had changed, you know, it's hard to track down. But, you know, you contacted them, the numbers we had, and the email addresses, and the addresses we had.
That's correct.
Okay, any other questions? Who is next? Mr. Lovelace. Oh, okay. Ms. Hammond.
In other words, this goes along.
There we go.
Okay, thank you. This is along those same lines. That was going to be my question. When you started the process, you had no idea how many of the total number would answer your calls and your emails and all. So we were lucky in the sense that a large number were undecided or decided to stay there where they were. What I would like to know is when you put in the next one, or because just the idea of a lottery or the word makes me think in some way it's a random thing, you know. You get your name put in and then how. So I had a lot of questions on this, and I know we waited until now to go over it after you had closed it. But that was going to be my question. This came out good this time for us. But how, if you had everyone or a larger number than we could accommodate, say all of them, would you have given all of them a place at the school of their choice, or how would you have chosen if we have another scenario as you move ahead?
Well, I think the operative word here is random, Ms. Hammond, is that this was not a pre-selection of any sort. It's based on those who apply, based on what we have available in these schools. And the software that we use does randomly select students. I'm not doing that, or any other officers doing that. So I think that's really the operative word there. And based on what's available and based on what the software selects in terms of its process.
So the lottery part's done by the software.
That is correct.
See, and that's good.
That is correct.
I couldn't answer that to a lot of people that asked me, because that was never explained till now. At least I had not heard that. And so I'm trying to understand how we would proceed, because if you put in another one, and to know just how this worked out. And, you know, because there were a lot of people that didn't understand how we could go back if we had to take people from their home school and go to another school. Then how were we all of a sudden as a board changing, and we have a lottery system? I think it's a good thing. I'm not complaining that we're trying to accommodate the public, but I do think it's important that we understand exactly how it works.
I got you. Yeah, and simply put, I will make up a number. If there were 10 seats available, and 15 students applied, that system or that software will randomly select the first 10 that come, and that's how we'd handle that.
That's what I never heard when you first told us about it. Thank you.
Right.
Sure. I'd like to echo a few remarks that Dr. Harris has shared, because there's been so much volume of content tonight, it's easy to overlook it. So just to bring some attention information, this is the 6th year we have used a random lottery software. So this is consistent with what we've done for all of our choice. I'll use Spring Hill, our neighbor, as an example. When students have gone through that process, it's consistent. It's the same application process. It's just been isolated to these families.
To this, yeah.
So I suspect many of the people that have had questions did not get that direct letter because their child or their community weren't involved. We sent the direct message of letters to the families affected. But I commend Ms. Goggins, because she and Dr. Harris have worked to make sure that our local media, print and television, have had the chance to interview. Dr. Harris has been the most sought-after interview in this district for quite some time. So the interviews that he's given is to make sure that the community understands, but we focused a different level of involvement for the families that were directly affected, for that customer service piece that you heard Dr. Harris reference. So hopefully that would help.
It does.
If you would like to see the letters, we can forward those to you, but we were very specific with, we can inundate you if you all would like. So Dr. Harris, I commend you and Ms. Goggins, because it's been a very cohesive effort to try to make sure this has been communicated appropriately.
Thank you.
Mr. Lovelace.
Okay, I've got it. Pushing away over here. Since the freezes began at Lake Murray Elementary School in 2018, 45 students have transferred to Ballantyne Elementary School from your slides. How many of those 45 are still at Ballantyne, and how many more can transfer to Ballantyne? This is kind of a colloquial question for me because I get asked this because folks that live in Timberlake want to know where they're, that's the closest school to them, and I want to be able to answer that. Can you tell me that?
Tonight, no, sir, I can't. I mean, sir, how many I don't know the answer based on how you describe or ask that question.
Okay, there's 45 that
I'm familiar with the number.
Yeah. Okay, but you don't know how many more can go there?
I don't have that information with me tonight.
Okay.
I do not.
All right, I'll get that from you later then.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Cates.
I just want to state to clarify, in our May 20 meeting of the board, you gave a presentation, and in that presentation, there were 2 slides. 1, recommendation of random lottery, and 2, what is a random lottery process? And it states, the implementation of a computerized system that utilizes software to make random selections based upon available options. Right. So we have indeed, you've been very direct about that process. You've described it as very much similar to the way we do all of our choice and magnet programs, and I think we have been, you've been very consistent. I just want to echo Dr. Melton's appreciation for the effort to continue to try to accommodate as many families as we can.
Absolutely.
Any other questions regarding that? Thank you, Dr. Harrison. And this is, when I talked to Dr. Milton earlier about this, one of the things that I mentioned, I said, the thing that I've always heard about with schools is that, and we've all heard this, is that the numbers change daily. And Ms. Hammond, I'm sure you know that from being in the school, that, 1 week you might have a family move away and there goes 3 children out of a elementary school. So it's a moving target. It is a moving target all the time, and which makes it a little bit more difficult to give an exact number. Well, it's an exact number today, but I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So I think that's important for us to keep in mind is how fluid it is. But if you have anything you need to bring back to the board, any other questions, feel free to do that. But it sounds like you and your office have it under control.
Ms. Hutchison, thank you for that. And if I could just bring that item to closure before we go to the second one. Dr. Harris is a spokesperson to stand in front of the audience and present this, but so many players, and he's acknowledged many already, but if I may pause one more time. Ms. Goggins, thank you to your staff. I'd like to thank Chapin Elementary, Ms. LaForce. Please go back to Mr. Hutchison and your registrar. You all have been so cooperative to make sure there's been a personal touch with every family that has called or dropped by the school, so thank you to you and your staff. Ms. Reese has been on top of this from the very beginning with us, so Ms. Reese, if you'll go back and share with your registrar, your administrative team, and all of your key communicators, this has been successful because of the unity of the communication. Ms. Wheeler and her assistant, Amanda Neal, have been directly involved to make sure that we're monitoring and tracking this. Dr. Harris has been monitoring this on a morning and afternoon to make sure how many more have we reached today, who else we have still on the list to go. So on behalf of School District 5, I'd like to say thank you to these variety of personnel that have been involved to make sure this has been a success. We've focused on students, we've watched numbers, and we've tried to show our responsibility to apply board policy, but to make sure we're focused on community service. So thank you to each of you. If you all would join me in applauding these folks, I would very much appreciate that. Our next item this evening is the esteemed Scott Carlin is going to come forward, and he's going to present to us from the Office of Finance and Operations regarding our capital projects. Mr. Richardson may have an introduction because if you've ridden by most of our schools, you see a lot of activity going on that Mr. Richardson and Mr. Carlin have been directly involved with. So let me first toss it to Mr. Richardson, and then Mr. Carlin will follow.
Well, excuse me. Thank you, Dr. Melton, members of the board. In case you didn't know this, this will be Mr. Carlin's last swan song for us. So I've asked him to come give us an update on our capital projects. We got a lot going on this summer. He's going to go over with you a lot of projects that we delayed last summer that started this summer, plus the ones that were approved recently that we've got going on. So with no further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Normally, it's not a problem to hear me anyway, but again, thank you for the opportunity to highlight some of the neat things that we're doing with our 8% capital dollars to renew our facilities, take care of the investment we've made in our community, and to continue to provide excellent teaching and learning environments for our students and our teachers and our staff and our communities. As Mr. Richardson said, we've got a lot going on this summer. I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about the fact that we're kind of combining some projects that you approved in last year's budget as well as this year's budget. We delayed projects at Dutch Fork High School as well as some projects at Irmo High School to combine them with the 3 projects you see at the top left portion of the screen with this summer's projects. On the right side of the screen, that is the budget you approved back in February, and every one of those facilities-related projects are in progress right now, and we will complete the prior year budget, those projects that we delayed till this summer, by the end of the summer. If you have any specific questions on the budget itself, I'll be glad to answer those before moving on to the pretty pictures. Okay. Here you see a major HVAC renovation that's going on at Dutch Fork Middle School. This is the 3rd and final phase of HVAC replacement at Dutch Fork Middle. That's going very successful. All the demolition to date has been completed. These are 2 in-progress shots on the demolition, but there's been a lot more work that's been accomplished over the last week. And again, that is the activities building, the back building at Dutch Fork Middle School. The only reason I included this shot here is that these outside eyesores are going to be going away as part of the project, since we're basically continuing the HVAC upgrade that was done in the first 2 phases, and so all these eyesores on the outside of the building will go away by the end of the project. Roof replacement.
Can you tell us where they're going?
They will cease to exist. The system that we have going back in place is a more efficient, upgraded system. What you see here is a result of when the school was constructed and they ran into a lot of rock. That school was intended to be on one level. They did a lot of, the term I'll use, Mr. Lovelace will appreciate it, they did a lot of devalue engineering to get the project back in budget, and compromised by putting in some pretty inefficient and but low-cost HVAC systems. And we're going back with something that's much more appropriate for long-term and for energy savings. And you won't have those eyesores to look at when you go to the school. In other words, this outside equipment right now that's in the cages, those will be hidden. So you're not going to see those.
So where is it going to be hidden?
They're going to be hidden in the back of the school.
They're going to be hidden in the back of the school. Okay, I might have you show me later.
This is the walkway. This is the directly adjacent to the covered walkway that leads into that activities building.
I got you, but I knew they had to be going somewhere, but that's what I was trying to figure out.
Different type packaged equipment that will not be looking like this.
Okay.
We're going to do a great job of screening so that you don't see that when you walk by. Dutch Fork High School, we're actually accomplishing phase 1, which you approved in last year's budget, and phase 2 of a 3-phase project to replace the roof on the main building. The left side shot is just a general aerial picture of the roof, and on the right-hand side you can see some of the work that's going on, including adding some lightweight concrete to the roof before they put the membrane on. That project is also starting out quite well, and they're really going gangbusters out there. Irmo High School, a fairly extensive HVAC renovation going on in the west wing, which is the portion of Irmo High School that's closest to the student lot and adjacent to Westcott. Or another way to say it is the closest part of the school to Irmo Middle School. As part of the administration, as well as Dr. Hardy's vision, we had brought to you last year a project to upgrade and relocate the training room at Irmo High School. Again, as a part of Dr. Hardy's vision, we saw an opportunity to relocate the existing art room up into the main building where it's more appropriately situated. And so the training room is going into the old art room, and I'll show you pictures in just a second of the renovation going on to move the art room up into the main building. But this will be the training room in the old art room in the activities building at Irmo High School. And here is the art room renovation going on now up in the main building. To do this, we're actually taking over 3 existing classrooms, one of which was the old photo lab, to accomplish this renovation. And that's another shot of the demolition work that has been completed, and now they're starting to install block and create that new learning environment. Softball program. We are in the process of bringing the softball program at Irmo High School up to an appropriate level, like we did at Dutch Fork High School and Chapin High School, both as a part of the bond and subsequent capital projects. So Irmo High School, we're doing that now. We accomplished some things for the program back in the fall, like building them a new batting cage, and also doing some work with the fence and netting. I'll show you that in a picture in just a moment, as well as providing the right-sized visitors' bleachers on both the home and the visitors' side. And now the work that's getting ready to go on this summer is to construct new dugouts on the field, as well as a new press box and concession stand. And the work you see in the far right picture is the foundation system going in for the dugouts, as well as the press box and concession that would be behind the bleachers that you see in that picture. And this is just some of the work we did at the end of the fall to redo the backstop, the netting, painted everything up, made it look really, really fine for their softball seasons, as well as the new bleachers. And that snow cone stand that you see at the back of the netting there has already disappeared, and it's going to have a nice press box and concession soon. So besides the major capital projects that we have going on, we've got a number of other projects, school identified needs projects, as well as some contingency projects. And some of the ones that I'm going to be touching on specifically is a courtyard renovation at Chapin Elementary School. We're doing a lot of concrete replacement around the district where we've got damaged, broken, and otherwise unsightly exterior concrete at the schools. We're doing some paving replacement. Probably one of the biggest jobs we're doing this summer is a major window replacement at Dutch Fork High School. I'm not sure how the windows were selected for that school when it was originally constructed, but they were not adequate, so we're going back with an appropriate window system for the school. We expect to do 2 things. Number one, much more appropriate system for the school, but we also anticipate saving a lot of energy in the process. Okay, here's the courtyard at Chapin Elementary School. All that area will be torn out and redone. It's going to look really nice when we're done. We're also correcting some drainage issues while we're doing that. Here's some of the concrete work that's going on at Chapin Elementary. Once they finish the exterior concrete, they're going to start working on that courtyard in a few weeks. Now we jump to Irmo Middle School. We're also doing a fair bit of concrete replacement there. Okay, moving on to asphalt replacement. You can see in the middle picture right there where the asphalt pavement, and it's actually not the paving surface, it's the subgrade that fails and you get that alligator cracking effect that you see in the picture there. The top left, you can see where all the asphalt has been milled off, and there's a soil or a cement stabilization that has taken place, and that will be being paved over fairly soon. You also see a shot of the prep work that's been done on the right-hand picture. The bus lot at Dutch Fork Middle School had the same condition, and we're reclaiming that asphalt in that area, doing a cement stabilization layer, and then that paving will go back in place, as well as a new concrete pad for washing the buses there. And then at the front of Dutch Fork Middle School, you see on the picture on the left, that whole loop area will be replaced. Not the parking stalls in the center, but the outside loop will be replaced. And then the areas on the right-hand side, or the back drive to Dutch Fork High School, all that paved area will be replaced as well. And up at Spring Hill High School, there was an area that, I'm not sure why we didn't pave this to begin with, but it was an area that was a gravel, kind of a gravel drive, more of a mud drive than anything. You'll see that in the top left side, behind the kitchen athletics area. And we've gone back and paved that area and provided some additional parking for the staff and the kitchen, both the kitchen staff as well as some of the athletic staff. And that's, you can see that's been completed in the picture on the right. A number of painting jobs are going to be going on this summer, miscellaneous jobs all over the district. Some of the shots you see in this picture include Dutch Fork Middle School, the far left. We're going to be painting the painted areas in the stadium at Dutch Fork High School. The third picture you see there is the the mini theater at H.E. Corley. And we have previously painted what were those dark brick walls in Nursery Road and Harbison West. You may remember the last time we've done a board meeting and how much brighter and presentable it is. We're going to be doing the same thing at H.E. Corley, as well as replace their theater lighting. We're going to be accomplishing that with in-house staff. And then the picture on the far right, that's the media center at Irmo High School. We're going to be painting this summer as well. Major media center furniture replacement that's currently going on at Dutch Fork High School, including the reception desk that you see at the top left picture. We weren't planning on performing this project, but the water heaters for the kitchen at Harbison West Elementary have a vote in this too, and they decided, yes, we are going to do it. So this was one of our contingency projects to replace both the water heaters for the kitchen at Harbison West. And both those water heaters that we're going back with are much more efficient than the ones that you see there in the top left and the top center pictures. Finally, the window project going on at Dutch Fork High School. You can see the glazing in the middle that's been delivered. And if you look in the picture on the left, those are double hung windows, really more like a residential type system. And we're going back with a commercial system that will be, again, much more appropriate for the school. Irmo High School, we did a project there. We had some settling problems in the back hammerhead bus loop in the back of the school, and we went in there, did some investigation, and remediated that concrete and replaced it. And finally, the major contingency project that we have going on that we did not anticipate, but we are attacking it now. If you, well, let's start with the middle picture. If you look at that middle picture there, right in the center of that, you'll see a hole. That started out as a dip in the track that we investigated back in the spring. And I went out there with a couple of our technicians and took a pocket knife and just figured I'd pick around in the hole. And what we discovered was a void, a big void under the track that had been caused by a bad connection between a drainage culvert and a junction box that happens to be right where that hole is. So we will be replacing the track repairing the drainage underneath the track, and hope to have that done before the cold weather hits this fall. We had to take the track out of commission, of course, because of the safety issues associated with it. But yeah, that was one that got thrown on us that we're making headway on now. Just for curiosity's sake, that was the hole I cut on the left side of the picture, and that void underneath is probably about 6 feet in diameter.
Oh, thank goodness no one got hurt. Thank
Exactly.
goodness the track coach, and I know I had a
Exactly.
question about it. Mr. Lovelace?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to say I wish you weren't leaving. I had planned to work with you, on a bunch of things, but
I hadn't either.
but one of the items that I've been wondering about as a contractor, that's what I do in my day job. Can you, we're all about allocating scarce resources, and of course you know that. And one of the things that I think that I don't know how well we do, and I'm sure it's very well, but I wanted you to give us an update on the increase in participation from contractors. I mean, can you just highlight our efforts to get first-time contractors involved in working for the district so that we can get better bids and so forth than we have had in the past?
Well, we reach
If I
out.
could, Mr. Lovelace, would you mind, just for continuity, for him to finish just this?
Oh,
And then,
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. We're real close to the end, and then
I'm sorry. I thought
Mr.
you
Carlin
had
can
finished it.
answer that question.
Sure.
You were just anxious, but,
I think that's actually,
Oh,
that was
you-
the last slide.
oh,
So
well,
perfect timing.
okay, forgive me. Okay. Go ahead. Oh, yeah, no.
Unless, any questions that I can answer that related to the
Okay, well, let's
presentation.
go back to what Mr. Lovelace asked
Sure.
then.
We advertise in Skibo for all of our projects. A lot of times nowadays, what we're having to do, Mr. Lovelace, is as you suggest. We can't rely on just putting it out on the street and expecting people are going to come to the table. So we're looking for every opportunity to bring new contractors into the mix. Our concrete jobs that are going on this summer, AOS Specialty Contractors has done a lot of work for us and they're really good at concrete. But we did have a new, I shouldn't say a new, have not done a lot of work with Moats Construction in the past. They're actually doing some of the work for us this summer at Irmo Middle School and Irmo Elementary. Gosh, it escapes me right now. I know that at the Irmo High School job, there are a number of folks working there, particularly, I believe it's with the softball program, and forgive me, I can't remember the names now, but there are a number of contractors that are working for us this summer that we haven't had a lot of experience with in the past, but come with good references and good recommendations.
Okay.
Ms. Hammond?
I have two questions. My own.
Yep.
Now, am I on? Okay. Well, two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
On what you went over. I'm pretty familiar with Irmo. Tell me again, the art room will be moved into the main building?
Yes, ma'am. So currently it exists, as you know, in the
Yeah, I know where it
activities
is.
building. And when we did that renovation and addition back in 2002,
Right.
remember we renovated the office area.
Yes.
That was a big portion of it, and we also added it was originally a wrestling room, a practice basketball court, and the art room in the back of the school.
Where the,
So at the time, apparently it was a good decision to put the art room down there. Dr. Hardy made the recommendation. I think it was a good call to move it up into the academic portion of the building.
is it right if you come in where the office is it down that first
Okay,
hall?
so I'll direct you right to it. If you come in the back door of the main building, the first hallway to the left, head all the way down, and the corridor cuts back to the right. Right at that corner, those 3 classrooms on the right.
So you took 3 regular classrooms
regular
to make one.
classrooms.
That's
Correct.
neat.
And again, one of them was the photo lab,
Yeah,
the
it wasn't
old
very
photo
big.
lab that hadn't been used for a while. So, yeah.
All right, in my others about that, what you went over, the place on the track,
Yes, ma'am.
how old is that track? When did we do that? It seems like I remember that when I was SIC.
Oh,
chair.
goodness.
It's not real old, is it?
No, I want to say it was 2012, but don't hold me to it.
But and where I was getting to, is there any chance, because like Ms. Hutchins said, I mean, that's a safety thing. Is there any chance with the company that put it in, we can go back for their help on?
Well, unfortunately, the drainage, the repair that's going to have to be made with the drainage structure and what have you, that was
That's
50,
not
50
their
years
fault.
ago.
Okay,
No.
I see.
But it does remind us that as we're doing new construction, how important it is to make sure that connections are done properly so you don't have holes that create voids that cause problems down the road.
Because I was remembering that was I thought very recent compared to, it wasn't like it was an old track.
Yeah, and what happened when we did those tracks, Ms. Hammond, back in, again, I think it was 2012, Dutch Fork High School and Irmo High School, what those projects consisted of was basically going in, taking the existing track surface out, taking the existing asphalt out, redoing some of the subgrade, repaving, and then putting the new track on. It had nothing to do with the drainage portion of the field, or the track area in the field.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. White?
My question is similar to that, but so we had a drainage problem that was, eventually was discovered when the track started collapsing.
It was an area about that big that just had a slight dip in it.
So, how would you know that there's a drainage? You said, in the future we need to pay attention, but obviously that was 50 years ago. What created that problem? That seems like a pretty serious problem when you got a giant sinkhole.
It took a long time to get there, but basically what you have under the tracks, you've got a 36-inch corrugated metal pipe, okay? And you've got a junction box at the spot where that hole is, where there's 2 pipes. Comes through the softball field and then heads from that junction box location out to the other side of the track. And so those 2 pipes converge at that junction box. And so one of the connection points between the pipe and the junction box had a gap in it.
And it was blowing water out?
Not blowing water out, but when you have those voids in the connections, over time, what can happen is it'll allow soil to drain through that void, and eventually it creates a sinkhole of sorts.
Were these pipes drainage pipes or just
Drainage pipes.
from the fields, or was this just water coming from the building?
It drains the upper portion of the student lot. It drains the parking lots in the back of the west wing. It drains areas around the softball field and the track. It's a big pipe. It's about a 3-foot diameter pipe.
I have a follow-up to this. So those are drains that, would they be counted as county drains, or they have to do?
Those are ours.
Oh, they're ours.
Yeah.
I had the same thing happen in my backyard, and fortunately it was county. But it created a big, huge sinkhole.
If it was water lines, that'd be a different story.
Yeah, okay. I was kind of hoping someone else could
Yes,
pay
ma'am.
for it. Thanks. Mr. Lovelace?
When we did we were presented MBCon's facilities report.
The study? Yes, sir.
Yeah. Were you involved directly with that?
I had an ancillary role in it. They asked me a lot of questions about existing facilities, some of the conditions of existing facilities, things like that.
That's where I was going with this, because I noted on there were a ton of roof and air conditioning related expenses that they plan to, and the lion's share, since I've been looking at this stuff since 2012, there's been a lot of money spent in roofing and air conditioning over this period of time.
Well,
But yet they
To be
have-
honest, Mr. Love, is the preponderance of the capital budget is roofing and HVAC projects.
Right, but I'm saying, but the preponderance of their information that they were putting forth was also roofing. And I think some of those projects that they had on their report were ones that had been recently done. And that's what I was trying to figure out why. I think we spent probably like $50 million in the last maybe 10 years.
Well, with 8% money, we have a $10 million budget
Yeah, but I'm talking
every
about
year for this.
over the past 8 to 10 years, we've spent probably in the neighborhood of $50 million on roofing and air conditioning. And yet in there, the preponderance of their stuff was, roofing and air conditioning. So I was just wondering, did they coordinate that, or was that just, how did it happen?
Yeah, some of the report does include things that we have in our proposed capital budget, in the
Right.
5-year plan. What they wanted to do was identify the need, and then depending on how we choose to fund some of it may be completed with the 5-year plan.
Right.
Some of it would make more sense if there's a bigger project going on, say at one of the other schools, say for the sake of argument,
Right.
Nursery Road. If something were to happen in Nursery Road that would require a large-scale renovation, then it wouldn't make sense to keep the roofing and the HVAC projects in the 5-year plan, put it in that project, and we take it out of the 5-year plan.
So
But it's options.
So it might be some overlap between the two in there?
Yes,
Okay,
in some
that's
cases.
That's
In some
what my
cases.
question was, because I want to make sure that if that, if we do have to, since you won't be here, that, that
Yeah,
we
we don't
would know
want to
that.
duplicate dollars.
Yeah, so we would
Right.
know that. Okay, thank you. That's
Yes,
it.
sir.
Any other questions about this? Mr. Cates?
I just wanted to say publicly thank you for the service you provided to District 5. We are proud of our facilities, and it's been great to have someone that would take such exceptional care. So we appreciate the hard work that you have done and wish you well in this next endeavor. And I'm going to ask Ms. Goggins if you will give him a coveted D5 pin so he can wear that with pride. Thank you, Mr. Carlin.
Well, and I think I speak for everybody that has the opportunity to work in District 5. I mean, we are, I'm not telling anybody anything here they don't know, but, we're the best district in the state. And it's a privilege to work in District 5. It's a privilege to work with everyone here. It's really exciting when you get in the schools and see what this effort, and y'all deserve a ton of credit in the support that you give to keep these facilities renewed, to keep them excellent, to keep them looking sharp. Curb appeals, everything. Dr. Melton has brought that to a whole new level. And we understand, because we're competing these days, and people have lots of different options, and we want to make sure that the best option continues to be that people want to bring their students to District 5. And I really can't believe it's been almost 20 years. I've had the opportunity to work here, and I'm humbled and very thankful that I've had this opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlin.
Ms. Hutchinson, if I may, I'd like to say to Mr. Carlin on behalf of the staff how much we've appreciated your work. And our theme this year of Know Thy Impact is very applicable to your work. You indeed have made an impact and have a lasting impact on School District 5. And we know where to find you if we need you in the future. So
Yes, ma'am, you do.
You
And
may
I will not hide.
I trust that completely. We wish the best of luck and know that you're going to continue the level of excellence in another community that you've given to us. So thank you for your service very much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Ms. Hutchinson, that completes the superintendent's report this evening.
All right, thank you. And we did not have anyone signed up for public participation. Obviously, we have very few people here. So next we have our action agenda. So I'll take a motion for number 13.